live.
And we are live. Welcome back to the Bullpen Cart, the baseball podcast. That is the name of the feed, presented by ThunderblogSports.com. I, of course, am the G-Man. With me, as always, Greg the Prophet Piatelli. What's up, buddy?
Jordy, living the dream, pumped for the Bullpen Cart to be back to its namesake, if you will.
Yes, and in real life.
Yes. Also a topic for later. That's why you're the hostess with the mostest.
I guess so. You know, we're going to go that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm excited. Pumped to be here. Glad I'm back for the AL East preview. I was also on Pod 1, Episode 1, which was AL East preview. And
it was.
And I got it right. I predicted the AL East preview correctly last year. Made a big prediction. No one believed me. And
you did.
That's how I got my name.
You did. You got it right. You got the playoff part wrong, but you got the regular season finish right.
Hey, listen. I said my homer pick and my actual pick. I gave a realistic.
Okay. All right. Well, for those that are new to the Bullpen Cart podcast,
nominally good.
If you nominally good. If you subscribed via the football, the hockey, the hoops, or most recently with Girls on Hoops, our newest podcast in the feed. What we do, we talk about baseball. What we did last year for our previews, we went through each division. So expect this to be number 1 of 6 or 7, depending on how we're going to handle doing our postseason preview. What we do is we go through every single team, and then we make our predictions of how they're going to finish. Last year, we actually did it in reverse order. This year, we're just going to go through every single team. You might be skipping around to your team if that's why you're tuning in. Check that in the timestamps below to see when we talk about them. Then at the very end, we're going to say, hey, here's going to be fifth, fourth, third, second, first, and then go on our merry way. Go on to the next podcast. So we start with the AL East. We did it last year, so we figured it might as well be a great place to start. First up is the Baltimore Orioles. Greg, start this one off for me.
Yeah, I mean, Orioles last year, basement, bottom, I guess by one game, if you will, of the AL East. 75-87 was their record. Similar issues. I mean, they had the worst starting rotation in all of baseball last year, and they haven't gotten much better. Their offense is good enough to carry them a little bit, and their bullpen obviously is great, but they're going to be outworked and with how terrible their starting rotation is.
And Zach Britton's still hurt.
Yeah, I was going to ask you when do they expect him back?
I think they just put him back on the 60-day DL. I don't know if that carries over season to season. Looking at this now on Yahoo of when it's as of. Yeah, but I mean, even right now, just looking at their list of players. I mean, there's a lot that are going to start the season on the DL.
They were saying May or June, right, for Britain?
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. I mean, regardless, I mean, he came back for a couple of games last year and was still pretty hurt and had to go back on it. And that was only May that he actually had to go back onto the DL. So, I mean, they're going to probably be pretty conservative about what they do with him.
Yeah, and they have Brad Bratch, who was one of the best relief pitchers in all of baseball, and Britain. I mean, everything I'm reading or have read is been like they're going to trade him if he's got like 1 or 2 good months after the Achilles when he comes back.
Yeah, which would make sense.
Yeah, so I mean, they should be sellers, and especially with Machado all but leaving, I wouldn't be surprised if they ship him out before.
Yeah, I mean, so that was a big part of the offseason was the Manny Machado sweepstakes going to be all but done in the offseason? I mean, now it's then again, we said this about Paul Goldschmidt last year, and we saw what the Diamondbacks were able to do, but I don't think the Orioles are that at all, even close to what the Diamondbacks were a year ago. He comes back to shortstop. That was his big thing. They got rid of J.J. Hardy. They let him walk in free agency. They have Tim Beckham playing third now. Their outfield, they still have Adam Jones, but the rest of it, it's a little, their infield's a similar cast of characters, but nothing really too much going on from them.
Yeah, and
a lot of strikeouts, some home runs, not a lot of hitting, not a lot of great hitting, that is.
And Rajai Davis they got rid of him last year, right?
Yeah, they got rid of him.
They got rid of him at the deadline, and it's like who unless they're going the super young route, who's really going to step up for them? Who's really going to be their guy outside of Machado? And I wouldn't be surprised if sooner rather than later Machado's gone, but that's just me. I'm also pumped because I hate their manager. And I don't use the word hate.
Buck?
Yeah.
Not a Buck guy?
No. Showalter, right?
Yeah, Buck Showalter.
I absolutely hate him. He was talking trash. The Orioles had one good season, and he was talking trash about the Red Sox, and
I forgot about that.
the Orioles were 4 games still behind the Red Sox, and he was talking trash about the Red Sox. So I'm sitting there, dude, your team's relevant 1 year, and you're out here thinking you're the best manager in the world. There's a reason why you were fired, and all those years ago, and you were on ESPN because no one fucking wanted you in the game of baseball, and now you're back because you were on ESPN, and guess what? Your team fucking sucks again. So
yeah.
But
one thing I find pretty funny too, just because Yahoo shows their minor league transactions, they've signed a lot of guys that 5 years ago were bigger names, but they were kind of older. Like Pedro Alvarez is a guy that's in their minor league system. Colby Rasmus. Who's the other guy that I had that they signed earlier in the offseason? But point being, they have a lot of guys that are older, that are hanging around there, that if they wanted to maybe pull the trigger, they could and bring them up to try to add veteran presence, but nothing too much to be expected, I think, from the Baltimore Orioles, because you hit the nail on the head. Their pitching still isn't much to be changed and probably will still get roughed up a little bit.
Ubaldo Jimenez, isn't he their best fucking pitcher?
Him, what's his face isn't terrible. Kevin Gausman's not terrible, but he's also not great. Andrew Cashner's okay. Chris Tillman's okay. So we'll see. Their bullpen's going to be the highlight of their pitching staff.
They have Mike Wright and
Aaron O'Day's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I didn't know how to fucking say his last name, so I'm glad you did.
Who, O'Day?
No. Yona.
Oh yeah, Nyona. Nyona. It's like gnocchi.
Ooh, nice, George.
So I think doesn't that start with a G though?
Yeah, I don't know. You're the smart one. Get a grip.
Yeah, right. But any other notes that we should let people know about with the Orioles? Machado's probably out. Trumbo, do you think he might get traded to another AL contender?
Yeah, that Beckham kid, the third baseman, he's pretty good, and he's young, pretty good. Right?
I'm pulling him up now. He he is pretty good. He's drafted in 2008, so I would think he was 18 then. So he's probably close to 28. He played for Tampa Bay. I think he played for the White Sox at one point.
He had a good year last year. For them, a good year for them. Yeah, Trumbo is a good name. I don't think he's going anywhere. Chris Davis, I don't think he's really going anywhere either.
Chris Davis is all home runs. It's all flair and it's all flash and flare and not a lot of substance.
And not for nothing, but they don't really they have 3 or 4 guys who they're spending all this money on. It's they need to not have done that.
He's only been with Tampa Bay. I'm thinking Gordon Beckham.
Yeah, no, and Chris Tillman is he's like the 6'7" guy who was on the Padres. He had that one good year, remember?
Yeah.
He's a starting pitcher, good for them, whatever. But yeah, that'd be my big thing. Talent's not great top to bottom. They do have some guys, but where do they go from there? And like you said, they're all homers, and I know Anyways, all homers from there, but
well, you were starting to say it, but we'll move on to them, and we'll come back to where we think the Baltimore Orioles will finish at the end. When we move on to the Boston Red Sox, your boys, who I'm looking at their projected depth chart right now, and doesn't seem like too much has changed except for one big signing, and that is the guy that it seemed like they were going to have they were the only team in the sweepstakes. Then it was broken that they were going to sign him, and then 5 days later they actually signed him. JD Martinez. Greg, what are your initial thoughts as a Red Sox fan of the signing and how the team is looking so far?
So, yeah, I mean, we talked about JD Martinez a little bit. Huge fan. I mean, my only issue is that I think it's so tough because he's an outfielder, right? He's an outfielder by trade, and their outfield is so young and so good that he's not going to play in the outfield unless those guys are getting nights off, right?
Yep.
Then the next logical thing would be DH, but Hanley Ramirez has been their DH. Okay, JD Martinez, we're going to put him in the lineup. Hanley, you're going to play first, right? And then, but now you re-sign Mitch Moreland, who's a Gold Glove first baseman, and you're going to stash him on the bench. And I get, offense over defense, but it's going to be interesting to see how Cora maneuvers the lineup this year. And another thing that insider knowledge, I mean, as a Red Sox fan, but Hanley Ramirez has something in his something in his contract about the number of at bats that he gets this year. Like if he reaches that number or threshold, then he gets a huge bonus. And like that's going to help because he's either going to be a free agent this year or he like could be a restricted free agent, which means he could go out and the Red Sox could match and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where there's a lot of sports writers in Boston and talk radio guys saying basically that Alex Cora, the new manager, which everyone loves, myself included, he's gonna have to try and manage Hanley Ramirez. How many bats he gets, how many hits he has, all these things like that. Interesting note, Jordy, about Hanley Ramirez, right?
Yeah.
Went on the Tom Brady method, the TB12 diet and method, and lost a ton of weight. Like is back to like his shortstop, a little heavier than what he was playing with shortstop, but he's back to like that physique and build that he had when he first came up, and like just pure athlete, no longer like a slob who wants to be DH all the time. So he's looking unbelievable, and the TB12 diet looks like it works. Anyways, so that was my rant. That was my ramble. Here's my big thing, right, Jordy? Actually, give me your take on the Red Sox. I've been talking a lot, and then I'll give you mine. Go ahead, go.
Okay. So my thoughts, they look a lot similar to last year. Mm-hmm. They kept a lot of pieces together, which I like a lot. I like the JD Martinez signing. That's actually a really good point with Mitch Moreland. I noticed that today that they did re-sign him, and it's interesting with how they could construct it. I mean, the one thought that I would say is that LA also had this last year, and we saw how they were able to maneuver that. So this team's young. They've been playing together for a while. Sans Martinez and really Moreland, he came last year, right? So there should be, the camaraderie of a team together to be able to, fit the pieces as such and go out and play. The one thing I really like about them is starting pitching, which is also really your top four guys have remained much of the same in Porcello, Sale, Price, and Pomerantz. Real big sleeper fantasy baseball wise is Drew Pomerantz as a owner myself. But I like it. I think you guys are going to be sitting pretty well without spoiling anything of where I think they're going to finish. I mean, you guys are sitting pretty for the division. And I think just the ability, it's better to have more assets than none and have bench depth, because I know at least watching the National League where you have to deal with pinch hitting and whatnot, it can come into play. But if there is times where you want to switch out a player who maybe isn't having the hot bat or the hot hand, or want to finagle one way or the other, you can do that at least.
Yeah, love that. Great call. Starting pitching is a great point. David Price, all intents and purposes, last year was like his rehab year from his injury. So he's going to be
great second half, though. He's had 2 great second halves for the Red Sox.
Because he was hurt. So like, I think David Price is going to have a David Price year again in terms of what he used to be from those Rays days, and I think it's just going to bolster that starting pitching even more. They're not going to have to rely on Sale and Pomerantz as much. They're going to be top to bottom. Porcello had a slow year last year because they overworked him so much in his Cy Young year because they wanted him to win the Cy Young, and rightfully so. So, I think it's one of those things where he doesn't have the pressure. So those first 4 guys, Sale, Price, Porcello, Pomerantz, like you said, are going to be off the charts, unbelievable in terms of having good numbers again. And their 5th guy, I mean, Eduardo Rodriguez, their 5th starter. He, starting the year hurt. Stephen Wright, their knuckleballer, who also carried the team a couple years ago, he's hurt to start the year. So their 5th, they at some point they could have 6-man rotation, which only helps saving Chris Sale, because that was a big knock in the playoffs. They didn't have Sale at the end of the year, so that could only help if the 6-man rotation could only help by the end of the season, if we're being honest. And give the thing about the Red Sox. I mean, I could go on and on about their lineup and how their depth, and the big thing that I'm looking at is their catchers, the big battle between Sandy Leon, Christian Vasquez, and Blake Swihart, with the last 2 being the young guys. But
I like Vasquez a lot.
Oh, he's awesome, and the pitchers love pitching to him. Like he's the guy that everyone's like, oh yeah. It was
like Carlos Ruiz with the Phillies. Everybody loved him.
Yeah, exactly.
Made a huge difference with getting that rotation in the better years for the Phils.
Yeah, no, and you're right. And Vasquez, it's like one of those things where you almost take what he'll give you offensively because he's so good defensively that you're just all right, whatever you like, we're on you, Yeah. So then the next thing, the thing that I really want to talk about is for a team that number one in the division, 93 wins, last year, right? Their bullpen this year is only so much better by making 0 acquisitions, and I'll tell you why, right? Tyler Thornburg, finally healthy, missed, they got him late. They got him in a trade from Milwaukee in 2016 and missed a bunch of the year with an injury, right? Carson Smith, similar sort of thing, okay? Matt Barnes, he's been up and down, but he still can throw 100 miles an hour. Joe Kelly, 101 miles an hour. Robbie Scott is that lefty who throws junk out of the pen. Kimbrel, obviously, in my opinion, top 2, if not 3, if not 1 closer in all of baseball. Yeah, if not top in the American League. And then Heath Hembry, who's just their guy who's been there forever. So that's where I think the strength. I mean, yeah, they have all the numbers on offense, the flashy, and they got the young talent, and they have the starting pitching depth, what have you. But their bullpen is really, in my opinion, the unsung hero of the team. I mean, you look at the last couple of years, teams that have success is how great their bullpens have been,
exactly
from the Royals to the Astros and what have you. So I could talk a whole podcast about the Red Sox just like you could with the Phillies. So before I continue rambling and before we get on to my next Red Sox thing, get us off of it.
So I was going to say the same thing about the bullpen. I like what you guys are bringing to the table a lot. So you basically took the words out of my mouth. Do you have one more thing, or do you want to move on to the Yankees?
I mean, honestly, the thing that impresses me most about the Red Sox and that excites me the most is just their youth for this year and what have you. But the thing that also makes me scared is the fact that 3 or 4 or 5 of their big core players, including Xander Bogaerts and Even David Price and Chris Sale are all going to be free agents at the same time. So their window is kind of this year and next year, if not this year. So unless they're willing to shell out some money, and the ownership group has given us no reason to believe they wouldn't. So it's almost with this core young group who I love and you love and we all love. It's sort of now or never, not now or never, but there's sort of like that pressure of this year or next, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, that's obviously we'll talk about the overall postseason at the very end of all the previews, but that's kind of where it comes into play of how does Houston line up to everybody? How does Cleveland line up to everybody? Because you guys were the unlucky division winner that drew Houston in the first round. I mean, the Indians also lost in the first round, but you just happened to draw Houston early. So, but we'll save that for another day. We move on, though, to your despised, my dad's beloved New York Yankees, who come in to the 2018 season with a team that could potentially hit a baseball to the moon.
I mean, I disagree with that statement, but
I wanted to try to get you rattled right off the gate. But the big news with the Yankees coming into this year, they acquired Giancarlo Stanton from the Miami Marlins basically for nothing. Am I wrong in that assessment that they basically gave Derek Jeter in Miami not a ton for Stanton?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I mean, draft picks, which in baseball, I mean, how many draft picks ever really pan out?
And Starlin Castro, who asked to get traded.
Yeah, exactly. So they got rid of a bad egg and they added, a guy who wants to win a championship when it's all said and done. But I mean, honestly, Jordy, I know the flashy thing is to talk about Giancarlo, and Judge, but I think Greg Bird, their first baseman who missed a whole bunch of time last year.
That's my dad's guy. He loves Greg Bird.
Yeah, he's like the fucking classic, like, who is their fucking center fielder forever?
Not Bernie Sanders. Bernie Williams.
Yeah, he's the classic. That's why I stopped, because I almost said Bernie Sanders too. He's the classic, like Posada, like piece of shit Yankee that just like always plays well, always does the right thing at the right time. He was hurt most of last year. He came back at the playoffs at the right time. Came back to the playoffs at the right time and just fucking did well. So
you hate Kyle Schwarber too, then?
No,
he did that for the Cubs.
No, because Schwarber is not like Schwarber is outspoken. He has a personality. This fucking guy, just like Bernie Williams and Jorge Posada, just like big piece of shit Yankee. Like, I love the fucking Yankees. I'm gonna cut my hair perfect and be a piece. Like, wear a suit and tie to the fucking ballpark like an asshole. Like, get the fuck out of here.
And wear some sneakers.
I mean, honestly, Jordy, Didi Gregorius, you have to respect the talent. Their shortstop there. Like I said, we talked about Greg Bird at first. Aaron Hicks essentially stealing the job from Ellsbury, the center fielder job from Ellsbury, which I hate Ellsbury with the best of them. So I'm pumped that he's on the goddamn bench.
Well, Hicks did pretty well last year for him.
Oh, he did great.
And then if Brett Gardner, if you need to throw him out in center, you can. He'll probably play left. Apparently, Stanton played some left field today in spring training for the second time ever in his career. So maybe they try to finagle around as they can.
Yeah, I mean, that was I mean, again, I know you want to talk about Stanton, and that's like the sexy thing that people are going to listen to.
No, well, we're going through the whole team, so don't you worry, baseball nerds.
Well, we got you. My thing is Brett the Jet. I mean, he's goddamn guy's old. You think you'd have him in the lineup to be Brett the Jet, but he didn't really steal that many bases last year, and he's not really.
Clint Frazier playing there too.
Yeah, and he didn't really do too much for them. But again, another piece of shit Yankee. But I think it's you're not gonna take Judge out of right. I think he had too good of he surprised people with how well he played.
You can't.
Yeah. No, you can't. You're right, 100%. I think it's a bounce back year for Gary Sanchez. I think he got a bad rap defensively. I think he's been working on it, or I hope he's been working on it, and I think it affected him offensively just because he was like I know everyone thinks I'm shitty at fucking. So he put pressure on himself. Gary Sanchez did to turn around and try and be better offensively because he was making so many defensive mistakes. So I think this year he's going to have that year that everyone expected. I think this year he's going to have that sort of bounce back year that we all expect from him. And that's their offense, in my opinion. Anything else that you think? Any other big point you want to touch on offensively?
What I would say is, I mean, the one other player we didn't talk about was Brandon Drury, who they picked up in a trade about 2 or 3 weeks ago from Tampa. He could be an addition that helps out there. But yeah, I think the Gary Sanchez take is a pretty good one. He did okay last year. It's not like he had a shit year. He was hurt a little bit. So we'll see. Ronald Torres is the guy replacing Starlin Castro at second. He should be all right. But yeah, I mean, the big thing is the big question is what will
don't they have Tyler Wade?
They do also they have Tyler Austin. They have
Tyler Wade, the second baseman. He's a lefty, right? He's young.
Yeah, they do have Tyler Wade as well. That's right. Yeah, he's super young. This is his second year in the league.
Yankees are high on him.
Anyway. Yeah, they are high on him. So it'll be interesting how they flip around. I mean, they could move that infield around as they really want to see it. It kind of, I think, depends on how everything goes with spring training. But really, I think the real big question for them offensively is how do their big four in terms of power do in Stanton, Judge, Sanchez, and Bird? Because you could bat, and Aaron Judge was batting second at certain points at the end of last year. You could throw Judge up second, and this is a guy who hit 30 home runs before the All-Star break. And then, as you'll quickly point out, so I'll do it for you, went very cold for a while, and then sort of figured it out towards the end of the season. But then you have Clint Frazier, who can hit home runs. You have Greg Bird. You have Didi Gregorius, who can come really out of nowhere and hit some bombs. So really, if they can figure out where it works out, and they have a new manager as well, that might be their biggest factor is how does Aaron Boone, who's never had any sort of managerial experience, how does he adjust in one of the toughest towns to be a coach and be a head coach and a manager in?
Yeah, and I think it's a great point, and I was going to talk about
because they're
the shittiest of all shit. No, he's not the shit. But I was going to talk about Brett. Brett Boone there.
Aaron Boone, Brett Boone's his brother.
I refuse to say his name, but Brett Boone's little brother. I think he might be the weakest part of their team, if that makes sense.
No, it does, because baseball is important. People don't really talk about the importance of the coach and other things outside of football, but baseball, it's pretty up there in terms of the importance of the pitcher or of the manager.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I think in order not only personalities and managing different things like that, but you also have to know when to say no to players, know when to take out a starting pitcher, know how to manage a bullpen, know when to make changes here and there, and a team like the Yankees, who are solely going to rely on homers to get they can't really manufacture runs too much.
Yeah, there's no small ball in this lineup.
Yeah, and I mean, quite frankly, there's no way Judge has as good of a year as he had last year. There's just no chance no way that he has that same type of production. I'm a firm believer he's overachieved 1,000%, and he's not going to do that again. I mean, once the pressure got on him and people actually started watching tape, he sucked. So I think that's going to happen all year. Big time cold streak for almost 2 months, if not 3. He's a piece of shit. He's got a gap tooth and needs to fix that. But the Yankees' strong bullpen, as always, or for the last couple of years, I should say. Oh. And I feel like I'm attacking people individually, but you can help me. But anyways, the biggest outside of Brett Boone's little brother, the biggest weakness that everyone always wants to talk about is the starting rotation of the Yankees. Jordy, I personally think people blow that over talk about that more than they should. I don't think the starting lineup's as bad as people claim.
I would agree with that.
Tell me why I'm wrong.
Yeah, so I mean, the only thing that's the reason why people bring that up is because they're, for the most part, there are parts of them that are younger. The older guys are injury prone. People will say Severino he outperformed last year. CC Sabathia outperformed, and he's older. He's one of the oldest pitchers in the league. Then the number 5 starter, whether it's Jordan Montgomery or Luis Cessa, you don't really know what you're going to get from there. So inconsistency on paper is what a lot of people will say. Severino, I don't think that was just a fluke. I think he can still put, even if he has a slight bit of a regression, it's still a very solid year. Sonny Gray has paid immense dividends from that trade immediately. But the big question mark comes to Tanaka. Can he stay healthy? He's really had issues the last couple of years of staying healthy. And if he does, I mean, he could be 2014 Tanaka in terms of just shutting people down. I mean, he was relatively healthy down the stretch, and showed that. So, I mean, that's where a lot of people get it and want to think that Tanaka, might not be the ultimate.
I mean, he finished strong.
He finished really strong. And now that I'm looking at it, he actually started 30 games. So that's actually, I just literally did what you were talking about. I assumed because he had injury problems 2 and 3 years ago that he had them last year, and he didn't. He started 30 games, which is pretty much every game you can start as a starting pitcher. Granted, he had a pretty inconsistent year, but he's finished very strong.
Yeah, he had a lot of short outings. But again, he was doing the right thing at the right time. Almost in the playoffs and all that stuff. And that's what you need to do, and that's how it goes. But Severino, I think, they put a lot of faith in him, like you said. Taking a chance and signing him, sort of letting Pineda walk in free agency. But they also started Severino in that wild card game, and he lasted 2/3 of an inning.
Exactly. So it's a lot of inconsistency.
Yeah, and honestly, that was a brilliant move by Girardi. Taking him out that early and saved the game for them. But I'm going to turn around and say Brett Bruin's little brother is the weakest part, and I think their starting pitching is a little better than people think, and I think their offense is a little worse than people think. And that's my honest assessment. I think people are overblowing their offense and underselling their defense, if that's the right word, or underselling their starting pitching, if that's the right word.
Yep, I would agree with that. Yeah, I mean, just the reason why, and everybody likes to blow up inconsistency and oversell consistency, obviously the latter being very valuable, but we like to go much more to the bigger extremes than we do as a society, but that's a little stay woke for you. Well, let's move on. Let's move on to the Tampa Bay Rays, a team who really sold very recently. I don't know how to put it any simpler. They've made a lot of trades, sent a lot of players throughout this offseason to all corners of Major League Baseball, whether it's Evan Longoria out to Tampa or to San Francisco, or the aforementioned Brandon Drury, most recently to New York. Tampa Bay has, and unfortunately the last couple of years, really any talent that's come through has been sent out as soon as they have some type of value.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. This is the team that lost the most amount of their players, or starters, bench players, most amount of their players, period, from last year's team. So it's sort of that unknown of is their young talent going to produce like they did a couple years ago when they made a run, or is this sort of the beginning of another Tampa Bay Rays / Devil Rays downswing for the next 5 years? So that's sort of, it'll be an interesting season to see how that goes for them. But they do have some players who are talented. They do have some, Matt Duffy is no slouch, and the guy who replaced Longoria at third, and I think, almost like Giancarlo Stanton, it was time for him to go, time for Longoria to, see what else was out there, and they didn't leave on bad terms, and the fans aren't upset with him in any way, and I think it's just one of those things where, it happened, and I think people loved the time that he was there, and I think it's needed to it needed to happen. The split needed to happen, and they need to free up that space to try and see how they should rebuild and what they should rebuild. So that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they go because they're almost the opposite of the Orioles. They have good starting pitching, also a very good closer, decent bullpen. Their offense has a lot of holes in it that could, they have some good players. You mentioned Duffy, Denard Span's a recent acquisition. CJ Cron's not too bad, but not the best. Avadia, or however you pronounce his last name. He's former Marlin. He's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Archer is still one of the better younger pitchers.
Oh, yeah, and that's what I was kind of getting at was that does Tampa Bay decide towards the deadline, can we try to, either hold on to him or Jake Faria or even Blake Snell and try to build around them? Do we trade them and try to build, how do we want to build is basically what the questions they're going to be asking. Or even for Alex Colomb, do we trade him and build that way? So there'll be some questions to be answered for certain in Tampa.
No, and honestly, it's tough because Tampa, for all intents and purposes, may have not had great talent or great starting pitching or whatever, but they've always had, not starting pitching, offensive talent. They haven't always had great offensive talent, but they've always had good pitching. They have the scouts who can find pitchers somehow.
That's true.
And that was really why they made those couple years, because pitching both starting and bullpen, and their bullpen has always been a good one. And I honestly believe this year that's not going to be the case. I think this will be the first year in quite some time that the Rays might not have as good as bullpen as they have had, and that strength of their bullpen always allowed them to win those grind out 3-2 games or 1-1 game, or you know what I mean. So yeah, I think this year they lose more of those one run games.
I think they lose a couple steps in the back end.
Yeah, more. I think they win some games
Thanks.
1 run because their bullpen. I think this year they lose some of those because of the bullpen. But that's
a good assessment.
Yeah. So give me a reason to root for this team. If I'm a Tampa native, give me a reason to go to the park every day.
Say Matt Duffy's is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
If Archer or Faria is starting, definitely go see him.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
See, Jordy, this is why you're the best host, because
those are probably your 3 reasons, though. Those 3 players.
This is why you're the best host. You can make one of the worst teams in baseball sound good, and that's why I'm always impressed by you. Let's hit the last team in the AL East.
Yeah, and I appreciate the encouragement, Greg. But yeah, the last team up is a team that I was pretty high on coming into last year, and man, was my thought on them ever so wrong. We go to the Great White North, the Toronto Blue Jays. Greg, tell me about my mistake from last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people gave their offense a lot of credit just based on the season they had in 2016, and that really hurt them in 2017 because people forget they made a ton of acquisitions in 2017 to sort of make that late run and that playoff push, and they were always going to be a team that's in the hunt, in the mix until late, and then taper off because their starting pitching is miserable, and they're not miserable, but their starting pitching isn't as good, and their bullpen, that's what I meant. Their bullpen's miserable. Starting pitching is great. Jordy, did you know? I'll let you guess, okay?
Okay.
I'll let you guess. Did you know the Toronto Blue Jays, in their farm system, okay, have the son of one of baseball's greatest hitters? And I'll let you guess who it is. And the clue, I mean, the only good clue I can come up with will give it away. He is a junior, so it's such and such junior.
I think I know the answer.
All right, who? Give me a guess.
The former world #1 prospect or international #1 prospect, Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Nice. Oh, so you do your homework. You do know your stuff.
Oh yeah, I've kept an eye on him for a while. He was, I think that that ranking came out in like 2014 or 2015. So I was very excited to see that he was already of professional age, and B, excited to see where he goes.
I mean, do you know if he wears batting gloves?
I do not know. Does he? I hope he doesn't.
I have no idea. I hope he doesn't too. That's why. That's why. I mean, I brought it up. I really hope he doesn't.
I really hope he doesn't. Could you imagine if he like went to Dick's or some sporting goods store and like, Dad, my hands have blisters on them. We need to buy batting gloves. Like, do you think he gets yelled at by Vladimir Sr. at the store? Like, no, we don't fucking wear these things. Pee on your hands. Do what we all do.
That's a good. Throw some tape on the index finger. I mean, that's a great. That's a great question. I mean, for starters,
those that don't know, that wasn't just some gross thing that we came up with. That's the rumor that what all players that don't wear batting gloves do to toughen their hands up. That needed to be pointed out because there's somebody that's like, oh, I like these guys' takes on hockey, so I'm going to give baseball a shot, and we might have scared them away. So it needed to be pointed out.
I love it. Yeah. Hey, listen, unlike you, I'm not as well versed with the prospects in baseball. So I actually ended up at one of the minor league games for the AA team the Red Sox have, and Vlad Jr. was playing, and I was like,
the Sea Dogs?
Yeah, up in Maine.
Let's go.
Yeah, and I was like, Vlad Jr., like, I was like, oh, just like one of those, like, happen circumstances, happen to see him play. And I don't remember about the gloves. I should have known. My mistake. Jordy, let's get into the actual team here. Okay. Donaldson, Smoke, Curtis Granderson's on his team. Russell Martin's still there. Kevin Pillar, who I effing hate, center fielder for that team. He's to do with the high socks and big eyes and all that. Offensively, do you think this team can? I don't want to say compete with the Yankees, obviously, based on what people are saying about their offense. But do you think they can keep up with a production of like a Red Sox or even an Orioles that produces some runs or within the division?
Yeah, I don't know necessarily if you're going to see a ton of power from them. I think one thing that we harped a lot on Baltimore that you're going to find the opposite here is manufacturing runs. Same with the Yankees. We harped on them a lot, but they can double their way into a lot of people's onto the scoreboard. But Toronto at least has speed. They have Granderson, like you talked about, even though he's getting a little older. Same with Tulo. They traded for Aldamiz Diaz from St. Louis, so he's another guy that's on there. Devin Travis is no slouch. Justin Smoke isn't terribly fast, but they got they have some abilities to move people around the bags. Probably not a ton of home runs. I think you're going to see most of that from Donaldson. Maybe I'm not even going to try to guess somebody behind him that could. Maybe Justin Smoke. I don't know. But I think in terms of where they could compete, I'd say maybe a step below the Red Sox. And I'd say maybe a couple steps behind the Yankees. I'd put them above Baltimore, though, just because I think they're going to put the ball in play more than Baltimore. I'll put it that way. So less strikeouts, more opportunities to make plays.
No, I agree. And I think their starting pitching actually is pretty good.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty good.
The thing that always, as a Red Sox fan, I always rooted for to get to the bullpen because that's where you.
Oh, that's where they're going to fall apart.
That's where you can catch up and do some damage. But I mean, Stroman is unbelievable. Hap is pretty good. Estrada's good. Aaron Sanchez is good, and then they just picked up Jaime Garcia from the Yankees. Also, a pretty good pitcher. Let me ask you a question. Going back to the offense before we jump quickly into the starting pitching and relief pitching. Troy Tulowitzki when is he projected to get back?
Let me check that.
He's still on the team, right?
He's still on the team. think that's why you got Diaz in there to at least be an opening day starter. According to Yahoo, Troy Tulowitzki is team news. If my computer would load up, is probably good. It looks like he could be ready for opening day. They're expecting that he's going to be ready. Wow. He's moving in the right direction, according to John Gibbons, their manager. Or no, it doesn't look like he'll be ready. Sorry, this didn't lead up right. Doesn't look like he'll be ready. He's moving in the right direction. So looks like Diaz is going to be the opening day starter. I wouldn't think he doesn't have a date here, but I don't think it'd be that far into the season that he'd probably get that he would miss. I don't see a date here though.
Okay. Well, the point is that let's go a week or so. Let's go or a month. Sorry, let's go. April May instead of April, whatever, where he's fully back in the lineup. I mean, it's still, like I said, that offense is still going to be able to produce some runs and hopefully manufacture some stuff like they did last year. So give us your pitching breakdown. I always start. Give us a pitching breakdown for the Blue Jays from the top.
So you have Marcus Stroman, very solid pitcher, eats a lot of innings. Marco Estrada could be okay. J.A. Happ could be okay. You mentioned Jaime Garcia, could be solid, more of a back end guy. Same with Aaron Sanchez. So I mean, you have a good rotation, very good up top, kind of on the backside. But like you said, the key is that especially with the 3, 4, 5 starters, if they're not playing their best, if they're a little inconsistent, it could get ugly once you get to relief pitching. And if it becomes a slugfest, because you don't have a constant threat of somebody to just blow the game up and put up a ton of runs for you, it might be tough for them to claw their way back into the game.
Listen, I agree. I think their starting pitching is really good, and I think their bullpen struggles. And the only thing that the Blue Jays have going for them, and this has been my thing that I've talked about for years, and one of those things that I think is real but may not be real. No AL East team ever plays well in Toronto. For whatever reason, the Blue Jays own the AL East at home, and whether it's sweeping or winning series 2-1, very rarely, at least for the Red Sox, do they go up to Toronto and have a successful a series on the road. So that's my almost how they're gonna get some wins here and there. But Jordy, do you want to start from the bottom in terms of ranking where they finished? Do you want to start from the top?
So quickly,
okay.
Before we go to the rankings, because he hasn't signed anywhere, I want you to take a stab at where you think Jose Bautista is going to sign.
Ooh, nice. Where did he end up at the end of the season?
He was still with the Blue Jays. He just didn't. He didn't decide to take his option and decided to walk.
He wants too much money, right? That's why he walked.
Yeah, he wants a lot of money. He had an He had an option. I think the Blue Jays decided they didn't want to pull up for $19 million. He's expressed interest of all teams to go potentially play for Tampa, which would be insane. But I mean, do you think where do you think he would end up signing?
It has to be an AL team, right? He's got to sort of be that DH outfielder mold. I mean, maybe he finds his way out to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. They're spending a ton of money on useless people. Why not? No, they're spending a lot of money this offseason, so he won't get paid by them. But if he wants to win and do well, I mean, that'd be a smart place for him to potentially land. But no, reality, I mean, that'd be awesome if he ended up with the Rays, but I'm hoping it's anywhere but the AL East.
That'd be a little weird if he did. I mean, because they'd be spending all their money on him. But
what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. I think it's probably an AL team. It's just tough because when really you leave the AL East, you start getting into really, aside from the LA Angels of Anaheim, you get into smaller market teams or teams that are already paying a lot of guys a lot of money, like Houston or even a Texas Rangers. Detroit could be somebody I could see coming out of nowhere to get them if they wanted to pony up a bunch of money because they're we'll go into the AL Central a little bit later on, but I don't it's I would say AL team over NL team for certain.
So Jordy,
yeah,
again, kind of off a little bit topic a little bit, but based on the way this offseason went, in terms of no one signing big Boris clients to big contracts, no one really getting that much money when it's all said and done outside of the Japanese guy. Is the glimmer of hope for Bryce Harper a little brighter in Philly?
You mean if you're for Phillies, potentially. He didn't rule it out last year when he could have easily said, "I fucking hate those guys." He said, I respect them or something like that. Would I want him? Who wouldn't? We also, if our outfield, and obviously we'll talk about this when we get to the NL East, the Phillies outfield could do pretty well. They could. They're no Bryce Harper, but they could.
Do you think he gets paid?
What?
Do you think he gets paid the 100 mil that everyone keeps projecting?
That's the big question. I mean, why wouldn't you pay him that big money though? It's Bryce Harper. That's the thing, is that we haven't had
Mike Trout, like
one of the clearly
Mike Trout is numbers statistically he's better than Harper.
That's kind of what I was getting at though, is you haven't had one of the top outfielders in that same echelon as them go hit the market for a couple of years now. Really just Harper re-upping his deal over and over and getting money from the team that he started playing for. You haven't had to have them go out and compete. So you haven't had almost a market reset. You have the JD Martinez deal, and that could be a set there, but baseball's a little different with how they do their money. So it'll be interesting. I mean, obviously we can talk about this as the season goes on a little more, and especially as we continue to go through these previews, we're going to start seeing more and more people sign, whether it's Bautista to Tampa or wherever, or anybody else that's still out there and has not, made a play to, get onto a roster, which I think they will. But we'll see. I think how the next 3 weeks go before opening day will dictate a lot of the rest of the next couple off seasons, I think.
All right. Just something quick. I know we had joked that Bryce Harper said he wanted to be in pinstripes and what have you, and the Phillies had the pinstripes. So,
yeah.
Anyways,
the red pinstripes.
Let's go. Give Joe start top or bottom for standing.
Let's start the bottom.
All right. Who do you got?
I think it's pretty easy of who I got at the bottom, and this is assuming they don't. I'd say even with Bautista, they'd probably finish at the bottom. I'm going to go Tampa at number 5.
Ooh, okay. I'm going to go Baltimore.
Okay, that's my number 4.
The only reason why. Oh, you know what? No, I agree. Tampa bottom.
Baltimore 4.
Nope. Baltimore bottom. Keeping to it. Hate Buck Showalter.
Right.
Just remember it. Hate Buck Showalter.
Sticking with your guns. I like it.
Baltimore. Go with my gut. Baltimore last. And they're. I mean, it's not going to be by too many games in terms of how many there are. How many, whatever the split is. But I think at the end of the day, Baltimore is just so miserable pitching wise that I think Tampa can win a couple more games than Baltimore can.
They could grind out a few more. I think it's close at the bottom. I think that the middle team is pretty far and away better than them, but not nearly at the top 2. And I think we're probably in agreement there.
Yeah, and so the team finishes third, but still
it's Toronto.
Yeah, agreed. And I think they still might have a chance to sneak to that wild card number 2.
I was going to say that. I think they're a wild. I think if the Minnesota Twins can make a push for it, I think they could put something similar like that together because they have a little more experience than Minnesota did last year.
Yeah, and they almost did it last year, Jordy. I mean, they almost, or I guess the Rays. Sorry, the Rays almost and the Blue Jays. They both sort of almost made that second wild card spot. They were in it.
Tampa Bay wasn't going away last year.
They were in it up until the end to sort of challenge the Yankees. That would have been great. I mean, I predicted 2 AL East teams in the wild card, and I think whatever. But yeah, Toronto could push again. I think. All right, Jordy, certainly. Who do you got number 2? Let's be honest here. Give me who you got.
I got the Yankees number 2, and then the Red Sox winning it.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Wow, let's hear your reason.
All right, so I don't think it's as bad as everybody says, but I think the pitching for New York is not nearly at the same echelon as the Red Sox pitching. I think the Yankees certainly have more power than the Red Sox do, but we talked about it before. It's going to be tough if they're not hitting bombs, or if Stanton or Judge get into some slumps, or if Gary Sanchez gets in. I mean, if 2 of their 4 big guys get into a slump, there could be some shortcomings for them. I mean, we saw last year with Judge when he got into a slump, he really got into a slump. So, I just don't trust that. I think it's close. I think they might even have the second best record in the AL, but I think the Red Sox have better pitching. They can manufacture runs better, and I like that bullpen a little more than I like the Yankees bullpen, especially at the very end of the game. I think you can set up and close it out a lot more bang, bang, bang than the Yankees can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't play for the Red Sox, nor do I work for them, so you can't really say me or you guys, but
the collective you.
No, I mean, honestly, Jordy, it's so tough because I'm so torn in terms of what I really think for 1-2 in the division, how they're going to finish, because you look at the World Series last year and the teams that were able to be successful all year, it really was their hitting, it was their offense.
Exactly.
Yeah, with the Red Sox being the exception, being the one of the shittiest offenses in the league last year, really the top teams were really all offense, and it's might be the way the game's going. It could be the juiced baseballs. It could be all that BS that everyone talks about or whatever. But for me, for that reason, it's so hard to not so hard. It makes me pause and think about potentially having the Yankees or predicting the Yankees to finish higher just for that specific reason. As we said, baseball is going that offensive route. But at the end of the day, the Red Sox are a team that last season, right, won 93 games. Okay? 93 games. They added 2 guys on their bullpen just from coming back from injury who are way better. Okay? They got Hanley Ramirez, who's finally going to be back to what he was before just because of the TV12 method. Thank you, Tom, the GOAT. And then you add a guy like J.D. Martinez, who offensively is production-wise, not only from the home runs, but RBIs and the on-base percentage and the doubles and what have you. He's a righty who can just eat up the monster, and he loves to go opposite field down the short porch they got in right. Their offense is only going to be better, if that makes sense. So, and now
that makes total sense.
Yeah, now they're not going to rely on guys like Mookie Betts to be their top home run getters when he should be a leadoffer too. So I think their offense produces way better than they did last year. And again, a team that won 93 games all of a sudden got a better bullpen. Their starters are going to be that much better because they're not going to be injured. And then they turn around and their offense got better. So it's hard to say to pick against the Red Sox. It's hard to pick against the Yankees. End of the day, gun to my head, obviously I'm taking the Red Sox. And, I really don't think Judge is going to have that great of a year. And Giancarlo, you and I've rooted for him to get 61 last year. And, he came up short, 58 or 57? There's no way he's able to come too close to that number this year. I mean, I think he might end up with 30 or 40, but sorry, close to 40, if not 40s. But I don't think he hits the 50 threshold this year.
No, I'd agree with that. And you're also playing in a better pitching division than you did last year. So right. I think that was a lot of it. And you'd now have to play Houston 6 times. No, they did play Houston at least 3 times last year, but twice as much doesn't really bode well for you if you're Mr. Giancarlo.
Yeah, so for that reason, I mean, kind of boring. We had the same exact prediction. I mean,
you've Baltimore last, so I mean, we had a little bit of a difference, a little bit.
All right, fair, but still, I mean, I had anyways. You
know what that means, though, Greg?
What?
Everybody's gonna have to tune in next time to see if we have differing picks for another division.
Ooh, even better.
Yeah. Hey, self-promotion, pat on the back.
Nice job. That's why you're great. Give us the roundup before we get into Oscar previews or even Stadium Snack. Let's bring back some segments from the old bullpen card.
Yeah. So for those that don't remember, we have a few segments that we love to talk about. Stadium Snacks, one very near and dear to me and Greg's heart. But just to reset everything, we are still doing the Hockey and Hoops Hour. Tune in for that. That's going to be me and Matty D tomorrow night. Going to record Wednesday night, release out on Thursday. Then Girls on Hoops, keep an eye out for that. That's probably going to come out over the weekend, probably Sunday, Monday. What else we got? Thunder BLG on Twitter. Make sure to follow on there. ThunderblogSports.com, of course. And Thunderblog Sports on Instagram. But you want to start Stadium Snacks to finish up the Oscars?
Yeah.
All right. So you had one you were pretty excited about. Tell me.
So last year, going into the season, the Red Sox Fenway Park announced, the lobster.
Yeah.
The lobster poutine, which I got a chance to try. I enjoyed it, but also lobster and turkey gravy don't really go that well together. So I ended up eating the lobster on its own. But this year, the Red Sox tried to go a little simpler with Fenway. Decided to go a little simpler with lobster and with a little lobster melt, if you will. So like a grilled cheese with lobster in it.
Okay.
Something to think about. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. And obviously, the big one that everyone's talking about in the news and everyone's really excited for with the Red Sox would be in Fenway Park would be Dell's Lemonade.
Yeah. That was the Stadium Snack last year. So good.
It is. It's unbelievable. Big old Dell's Lemonade, a big, nice little frozen lemonade. It's unbelievable.
You want to explain to the newer listeners of what it is, Greg?
Oh, let them try it first. It's unbelievable. So, think slushy, think frozen lemonade combined. It's not a slushy because there's not as much sugar, but it's also not a. It's not
Philly listeners. It's a little bit like Wooder Ice. I had to say it the Philly way, Greg. I'm sorry.
That's okay. But yes, and then they got a little chunks of lemon in there, which is always a nice surprise. They have one of those that comes with one of those straw/spoons, the 2-in-1 combo, if you will. The little red ones that have the small little thing on the bottom. It's just a great all around thing. Dell's Lemonade, located in the right field concourse as well as outside the stadium before.
So good.
Jordy happens to know the owner, and
I do.
It's awesome. It's great. I get hooked up with free stuff thanks to Jordy's connection. So,
yeah, I guess it's mine. Not nearly related to anybody that's on this podcast at all.
I mean, you were baseball teammates with this person. I actually, you were sport teammates with this person, and I was not ever. So,
really, never, not even as kids.
No.
Wow. Also, this guy was a bleacher creature, which I did not prepare one for tonight, so I do not have a bleacher creature. But that's our fan of the week.
Who's that?
Paul.
Oh,
remember, he was the first one. He was the first bleacher creature.
The first bleacher creature, yeah. His little stories. So yeah, explain the Bleacher Creature segment, and then give us your food. Your stadium snack.
Yeah, so the Bleacher Creatures fan of the week. Basically, we look at the best stories that we've seen, or stories that we have from our times going to games and what we've seen. Prime example that we used last year was Greg's cousin Paul running and catching a home run ball from a bunch of little kids. Another one that we love to use are the stories of little kids having catches with baseball players at spring training. Those videos that you see go viral. Or mascots doing crazy shit that are literal Bleacher Creatures. So those are always pretty funny. Obviously, if you have any of those that you want to submit, feel free to DM them to us. Same thing with stadium snacks or even beers for the beer corner, which is more of a Matty D segment since he is the beer specialist for us. But my stadium snack, I'm trying to look up because they did announce what they were adding at Citizens Bank Park, but Google is failing me right now.
Uh-oh. We'll have to do it on the NL East podcast.
We will have to do it on the NL East podcast, but since I can't find it, and I had a couple good ones that they were adding. I will talk about the one that I put up on our Instagram for the Flyers game. I know it's not a baseball stadium snack, but it is still at a stadium.
Give us the Flyer one.
Yeah, so it's called the chicken and waffle tacos.
Ooh.
Now, if you haven't seen this on our Instagram, again, it's Thunderball Sports. Go check it out. It's from about a week ago. Basically, what this is, Greg, is that they took a waffle taco shell. It's about the same, thin waffle crisp almost.
Ooh,
shaped like a taco shell, like from Taco Bell. Put some shredded chicken in there, a little coleslaw. And I don't know what kind of mayonnaise they use, but it must be some type of aioli, because it goes very well with the barbecue sauce. And get ready for this. Maple barbecue sauce on top of this.
Ooh.
Incredible. Now, if you do get a chance to go to this, I would imagine they have this at Flyers and Sixers games, probably throughout the rest of the regular season, because that's only another month for hockey and basketball. What I recommend is, because you'll taste this when you eat from where the food actually is, because the shell's a little bit longer than the amount of food that they stack in there, if that makes sense to visualize. The top part's going to be a little dry, the top part of the shell. So either soak it in some of the syrup that's dripping out, or crunch off, break off some and put it into the middle of the taco. Give yourself a little extra crunch, because that way it really unleashes the waffle, if that makes sense. It's not as dry.
So the waffle, is it like a waffle cone, or is it like a thin actual, like a waffle?
So it looks like a waffle cone, but it tastes like a regular waffle. It looks like they literally made a crisp out of an Eggo.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's pretty goddamn good. If you had the opportunity to try this, I highly recommend it. I don't know if Aramark, who does the Wells Fargo Center food, the same thing with Citizens Bank, if they're going to transfer that to their other locations around the country, since they do a lot of different stadium snacks. But maybe Fenway.
They did. They
see it. Try it. That's my recommendation to you.
Listen, I just went to the Instagram. Super easy to find. Found the pic. Looks unbelievable. A little jealous you got to eat it, but maybe when the Bruins beat the Flyers on Thursday night, you can give me a little recap again about something new. But little plug for the Bees.
Well, I'll be there tomorrow. I'll be there Wednesday night for the Flyers versus the Penguins. Doing double duty, recording a podcast, then immediately going down to the game. So, big night for this guy.
Nice. Jordy, give us your Oscar biggest surprise or snub.
More of the snub, because there weren't really any surprises. So, hot seat, snub, whatever you want to call it, on surprises at the Oscars. They made a lot of jokes about the wrong envelope and all that stuff. So they made sure to do it all right this time. Biggest snub, though, it was awesome that Jordan Peele won for Best Original Screenplay. I would have loved to see him win for director. Mm-hmm. I have not seen The Shape of Water, or the fish fucking movie, as I so eloquently call it. But, obviously it did very well. It won Best Picture, Best Director. But I would have liked to see him or Greta Gerwig win for Best Director, because they both really poured their hearts and souls into it. The stories behind both of those movies are just incredible, and how much they really wanted to push for those movies to get made. I heard that Guillermo del Toro did as well, so I don't want to take anything away from what he did. But it would have been cool to see on that regard, especially with with Get Out winning for best original screenplay.
Yeah, no, and I think Get Out and Jordan Peele 100% deserved what he got. And I think he should have gotten more. You're right. I was rooting for him for best director. The only thing that frustrated me the most was the best picture, because it's like the fucking artist bullshit. Like the artist that didn't have any words in it and somehow won a fucking Oscar for best movie of the year. That's bullshit. Like 30 people fucking saw it. Same with this fucking Shape of Water movie.
The fish fucking movie. We know it as the fish fucking movie.
Like 45 people might have seen it instead of 30. And plus, especially because we saw everyone went and saw Get Out. So many people, and I know it's not about reviewers, and I know that this and that, but even the Three Billboards movie was unbelievable and so well acted and so well produced and put together so nice. And I did not see the Shape of Water movie, but
no, I didn't either.
I didn't even hear about it until fucking yesterday or whatever. So
yeah, did you think that it was interesting that they kept bringing up like Wonder Woman, Black Panther obviously came out in 2018, so it couldn't have gotten nominated for an Oscar, but they brought up like Thor. They brought up a lot of superhero movies, and of course, like those don't really ever get nominated. Same thing with Star Wars, lump it into there, but they kept bringing those up as great examples of movies, and obviously what they were able to do, and the stigma that they're changing in Hollywood is important. But they kept bringing them up, and they weren't really nominated for a lot of stuff. Like, do you think they were trying to say something that they wanted it to get nominated, or just more of the importance of those movies coming out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more of, if we're being honest, I think it's more of like viewers, what they went and saw, yeah,
that's a good point too.
People like those are the highest grossing movies, outside of Avatar, how often does the highest grossing movie actually win the award? Maybe Black Panther will this year, but Black Panther might be hurt by the fact that it came out so early. I think that kind of hurt. I think that kind of hurt Get Out because it came out,
it came out like this time last year.
Right. And people hadn't really thought about it for a while. And then all these weirdo, looks like Shape of Water movies came out. And it's like,
well, Dunkirk did too. And Dunkirk won a ton of shit.
Yeah. And that was, I mean, Dunkirk was a good movie, and war movies don't really win too much, but I don't know. It's one of those things that I think, no one's gonna be happy with whoever wins, but I think there was more people upset by Shape of Water. And it's funny, people thought that, okay, I'm all for women's rights, I'm all for equal rights and everything, but I'm happy to see that the people voting or what have you weren't necessarily intimidated or scared into voting for a movie that may or may not have deserved an Oscar, if that makes sense. Like Greta Gerwig and that movie, and yes, she 100% deserved to be nominated. 100%.
For sure.
100%. I don't know if the movie deserved. I don't think the movie deserved to win. You could argue, should have or could have won for best original screenplay, but at the same time, a girl's coming of age movie. That was Juno, but she was pregnant. This is a mother-daughter relationship. Like, not for nothing, but been done before. So I'm glad they weren't scared off to vote for a movie like that.
Yeah.
The movie was really good, and Greta Gerwig did a great job directing, and obviously the movie itself was good. So she wrote a good movie, but I just feel that I'm happy that in a way, even with Get Out, that they didn't give them every award under the sun, just because people were.
Yeah, because it was like I don't want to say feel good, but it was like the important movie that needed it. It needs to get decorated.
Right, and people are pressuring.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
people are pressuring them because it's only white people who win and blah blah blah, and it's like, so for me, I was happy to see they weren't intimidated by them, but I was also, I don't think some of those movies at this point, I don't think some of those movies are strong enough to win those awards. Whereas last year, some of them should, and they didn't because they always give it to white people and what have you. But I think this year they did a good job, and I think the more nominees, the better. And I'm excited that they're actually starting to nominate more and more groups like that, and hopefully that continues and that trend's going the right way. But Like I said, I'm all for all that stuff. I just am happy, on one hand, to also see that they weren't intimidated to make those movies.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, and I think most people would in that regard. But yeah, I mean, 2018 so far, I've only gone and seen one movie in theaters, but there's a lot coming out even just in March that I'm excited to go see. I heard Game Night was actually pretty good, so I might try to check that out pretty soon. But obviously, all the Marvel movies coming out, and then we'll hear all about the Oscar buzz and all that as we get into the summer. But
you know, a movie I'm excited for end of this month, just because I read the book, is Ready Player One.
Yeah, I'm excited for that too. I haven't read the book. I don't think I have time to read it before it comes out.
My God, the book is unbelievable, Jordy.
That's what I've heard. I heard it's great.
The book is unbelievable. It's so good.
Yeah, just like, and two, like, I know one reference definitely wasn't in the book, but like all the visuals from all the different previews, like if you play video games or watch TV, like especially older TV shows, like the one that I was referring to that definitely wasn't, because the book came out 3 or 4 years ago and the video game came out 2 years ago, is Tracer from Overwatch is in the trailer. The RX-78 Gundam from the original Gundam series is in the trailer. I'm not sure if it's a big plot point in the book or the movie. I'm excited to see if it is or not, because I love the Gundam series. But just if you have that inner nerd and the nerdgasm, get that stuff going. I mean, that looks pretty sweet. And I'm sure for you, having read the book, you're just as excited, probably more than I am.
No, I mean, it's one of those things where the book was so good that I'm excited to see like the world and the thing imagined in life, or you know what I mean, if that makes sense. Like,
no, it totally does.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, I mean, if Avatar was a book, the movie Avatar was written as a book, like it would have been, or Life of Pi. Okay, perfect example, right? Life of Pi, the book was really good, and they did such a good job of adapting it to the film to make it actually, be able to put that sort of visual on something so stunning. And I'm hoping Ready Player One does the same. And the storyline is very unique, and it's very, almost to a fault of scary about how real and where the world could be going by the time. But because it's all based around virtual reality. For those who don't know, it's very much like a society where everyone is so poor, and then there was this virtual reality thing, an alternate world online that came out, and almost like kids go to school through that, and it's very much a one of those it could actually happen type things. But it's also sweet because the guy who created this world grew up in the 80s is the theme of the story, right? And so he loved video games, as Jerry's talking about, loved arcade games, loved like all those different Dungeons and Dragons and things like that. So it sort of pays homage to things like that moving forward throughout the story without giving too much away. It's get those like Jordy said, those nerded out on those games and such throughout the whole thing. So,
well, the trailer even has like Van Halen. He's driving around the car from Back to the Future. I mean, it's pretty cool. We'll put it that way.
I recommend you read it, Jordy.
I don't know if I have time to, because I'm not the fastest reader in the world, and we have a lot of baseball podcasts that we have to get through in the next 3 weeks, which wraps things up perfectly. Stay tuned for the Hockey and Hoops Hour coming to you, probably released Thursday. That we're dropping this Wednesday, but then the rest of our previews for the rest of the baseball divisions. I do not have an idea of which one's going to come next, so stay tuned and be surprised. Greg, do you have anything else for me?
No, I mean, pleasure as always. You're a great host.
Okay. Thank you, my man. Thank you for coming on.
Make sure you cheer on the Bruins well on Thursday for me. And
well, no, it's in Boston.
Is it? I thought it was in Philly.
No, it's in Boston. The Bruins only come to Philly one more time. They come on Easter.
Oh, all right. Well, maybe I'll get tickets and I'll cheer on your Phillies I'll give one woo for the Flyers once for you, and then cut them down after that.
Yeah. When they introduce Captain Claude, it'll be like, yeah, all right, Claude.
By the way, Sixers looking good.
Yeah, Sixers currently winning against the Charlotte Hornets. If you had a moment, go read the recap on Liberty Ballers, written by Third and Girl of Girls on Hoops.
Love it. Hey, have a good one, Brady.
Hey, Greg, you have a good one as well. Thank you again to everybody for listening to the return of the Bullpen Cart, presented by Thunderblog Sports on the Bullpen Cart podcast feed. Have a good night, everybody. Peace.